people of the internet, my name is Gabby and I'm back with another week of Shadowhunter reviews. This week I'm going to be discussing Season 2, Episode 5, Dust and Shadows. This week's episode was definitely a major improvement over last week's episode. I feel like with last week's episode, I was just really frustrated with the new direction that the writers took the plot, but I'm more understanding and accepting of it now, and I'm just more interested to see where they're going to take this new plot and this new content, and I hope that they will be able to effectively continue to tell the story and its plot without running into problems with the content that they've changed. But to discuss this week's episode, I have to say that it seems like we're making some concrete improvements and that this show is really coming together. A big thing is character interactions, which were a mess season 1, and they've really improved come season 2. It seems like whether it's because the actors all know each other better because they've been working together for 2 seasons, you can really see that on-screen chemistry in each of their scenes, or maybe it's the dialogue improvements because yes, granted, the dialogue is still a little bit of a mess and it still has its problems here and there, but it's a lot better than the content that we received from season 1, so it is an improvement and I'm hoping to consistently see it improve. Another thing is the pacing. The pacing was a mess season 1 and we've really cleaned that up. It seems like our narratives are longer and it also seems like we're not plot dumping as much information, and so it seems like you're able to get a good understanding of what's happening in each episode with the plot without feeling like you're being thrown all this information at once, and that you're able to understand where the writers are going with the content that they're introducing, and you're able to understand what's going on without feeling too lost and confused. So again, all these improvements are just really helping the show come together and it's making it more enjoyable to watch, and I'm just really happy with all these improvements, and I'm hoping that we continue to grow with them and that we continue to make those improvements because it's just really going to help the show get to a point where it's going to come together and it's going to be effective and it's going to be a show that'll actually be fun and exciting to watch. And I hope that we get to that point eventually because I am enjoying episodes like this and I hope to see more of them in the future. That's pretty much it for my non-spoiler section, so if you have not watched Dust and Shadows yet, go and watch it, and I'm pretty much going to say goodbye to the non-spoiler people, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. So we start off with Alec, and he is on top of the roof of the Institute, and he has his bow and arrow, and he's shooting arrows off into the distance. And then Jace comes into this scene, and Jace tries to convince Alec that what happened in last week's episode was not his fault, there was nothing that he could do about it, and then he should come back inside. And Alec refuses to listen, to the point that when we get later into this episode that he goes and confront Clary. Clary brings up this whole plan that she has to bring her mother back from the dead, and Alec is immediately on board without a split-second hesitation. And that is so unlike Alec, and it's just something that frustrated me because Alec in the books is what I would consider like a goody two-shoes. He always listens to all the Shadowhunter laws and the Clave rulings, and is pretty much always Mr. Stick to the rules and is what I would describe, as a goody two-shoes, for lack of a better term. And so for Alec to get on board with something such as necromancy that is extremely illegal and also considered dark magic without questioning Clary or understanding whether this was going to be a situation that's going to work out just felt really weird and really out of touch with his character. Again, I get it for the sake of convenience, but it just felt weird to me, and I would have liked to have seen him at least have some hesitation instead of immediately jumping on board and letting that guilt be something that so much affected him. But coming back to this first scene, we have Alec, and he's on the roof. He decides he doesn't want to talk with Jace anymore. He draws a rune on his arm, and he goes and he jumps off the roof and lands perfectly, and that's where the scene cuts. It just was kind of weird for me because that's ability that Jace is supposed to have, and we haven't gotten into his abilities yet, but we will. And when we do, how are we going to go about that? Because the one ability that Jace has, we've given to another Shadowhunter. So then we go to Simon, and Simon is praying, and that's something that he should not be able to do. Fledglings are not able to speak the name of God, let alone pray. And Cassie goes into it in her books. I'm not going to even really bother to explain it. Bottom line is that it seems like the writers went out of their way to purposely stand away from Cassie and the material that she created, and downworlders like the vampires and the capabilities that they can or cannot have. And I feel like there's other ways they could have gone about putting the scene together, whether they have Clary pray or they just have Simon comforting Clary. Like, they could have done other things, but it seems like they went out of their way. So we have Clary, and again, she has this whole plot of how she wants to bring her mother back, and so she goes to Magnus, and Magnus immediately shuts her down, as Simon and Jace do in the course of this episode. But he gets into this whole thing about how he wouldn't even do it for his own mother. He brings up how his mother found out that he was a warlock, and so his mother committed suicide, and she uses this knife that we see that he got from Camille's house when they went to India a few episodes back. And I'm really glad that we brought that back in because it would be so Shadowhunter-esque to bring something in, minor as it is, and completely entirely ignore it. So it shows that we're making improvements. So we bring something in and then we're gonna get to its importance. I didn't catch it the first time around, but I'm glad I caught it the second time around because it just shows to me that the writers are improving on bringing those things in and giving them some significance and importance, as minor as it may be. I appreciated it. So we have several different character dynamics that we get to see throughout the course of this episode. One of them is Jace and Izzy, and I feel like we don't really see a lot of scenes from them, and this was an episode that was filled with them, and I really appreciated it, and I think that you can really see the brother and sister dynamic there, and it felt like their characters were really genuine, and I just liked their interactions, and it was good. And then Clary and Jace, we have their dynamic. Again, I've been saying this before, that I felt it was really good, really strong, and it was something that I really appreciated, and I'm also really glad that we're not pushing the brother-sister thing or the relationship thing, that we're just kind of letting them gradually get to that point and just letting them deal with their own issues instead of forcing this relationship onto them. Another thing that we get to see is this Malik moment, and it's again more of Alec trying to be reassured that you have to go and confront Clary and you're gonna have to do it and you'll be able to do it. And so Magnus is assuring him of all of this, but he also brings up about how hard it was for him to turn in Camille because of the history that he had. Magnus asks Alec, like, was that weird for you at all? And he's like, no, whatever, and just kind of dismisses it. I just would have liked to have seen him be a little bit more jealous or upset or kind of show that he was somewhat lying when saying that, because this is more in the second half of the books, but Alec starts to get really jealous of all of these possible other people that Magnus could have possibly been with in the past, and it's something that starts to eat away at him because he realizes that he's mortal and he's not going to be able to be with Magnus forever, and he starts to just have all of this jealousy, and I would have liked to have seen that start to slightly develop, although we aren't going to get to it until later because it does cause him to do some things, and you see the repercussions of that in their relationship. I just would have liked to have seen that, but, and again, you know, maybe that was something that was put in there that I just didn't properly interpret, but I would have liked to have seen it and I didn't. So we have Simon, and he goes back to his mother because he realizes like Jocelyn died and that his mother is going to die and he's still going to be alive, so he wants to be with her as much as he can. So he moves back in, and we have this conflict with Simon coming out to his mother about his vampirism, and we have his sister. She comes in, notices the blood in his room, and is like, oh my god, why do you have actual blood in your room? And then she like goes and flushes it down the toilet. It doesn't seem like she's actually concerned. It just seemed like she was more like, oh, this is weird, and then just moved on. So it felt like it wasn't necessarily executed properly. And then we have his mother, and Simon comes out to his mother, tells him that he's a vampire. It seems like she doesn't really believe him at first, and then she acts like she believes him, and then we see her call a doctor and think that apparently Simon is crazy, and then she walks back into the room and sees Simon eating a rat, and that's where that plot line ends. It just felt weird to me. I hope that we're gonna get to the point where Simon's mother kicks him out, because that's what ends up happening in the books, and that's extremely important for his character. But it felt like just the entire scene, like it was executed not properly, like it just felt weird, but I'm appreciative that we're putting this plot line into the show. So we have Clary, and she has this goal to bring her mother back from the dead, and like I said, she gets Alec on board with this. Although Jace and Magnus and Simon all tried to deter her, she is determined to bring her mother back. And so she goes to this warlock, Iris Rouse. Iris immediately agrees to bring her back, which seems a little bit weird at first, considering that Magnus was so hesitant towards doing it that some warlock would immediately agree to bring Clary's mother back, but she does, and you find out that it's because that she tricks Clary into fulfilling this blood oath, where now Clary owes Iris this debt. Clary goes to try to fulfill this thing, and there's this great moment where Iris opens the door, and she's like, oh, you brought a friend, is it your boyfriend? And then they just both look at each other, Alec and Clary look at each other, and it was just this really great funny moment, because you know that Alec is gay, but I appreciated it. I thought it was funny, and it relieved some of the impending tension that we were about to have go down. Anyway, Alex left to sit outside. He doesn't even really bother to protest. Iris just tells him like, go sit, and he does, whatever, and it just felt again weird that he isn't protesting at all. He slightly did, but not enough to really convince me he was starting to become not okay with this. Again, I would have liked to have seen it, but so Iris starts to go through with this whole thing, and Clary realizes that this is not right, that there could be problems and things that go on here that aren't good. She stops Iris, and then Iris is like, you still owe me this debt, and you find out that she wants to raise all of these warlock children because Valentine is killing off all these downworlders, killing off their population, so she's trying to raise all these babies, and so she's had all these women coming in and out and giving birth to all these children, but wiping their memories. So now she has this influx of warlock children that are being born, and she wants to use Clary as a surrogate mother to make this half demon, half Shadowhunter baby. So I don't know about you, but I was getting some strong Infernal Devices vibes in this episode, and this wasn't the first thing that supported that idea, but that was something that happened happened. So Iris wants to raise all of these warlocks, and so she takes Clary, puts her into like this basement area, and then we have this big black gooey demon come in, and it's basically going to try to rape Clary, and this is where her rune abilities get brought in. And so she visualizes this rune, she draws it on her hand, and then she uses it to repel this like big amount of light out of her hand to kill the demon. And I'm really glad that they decided to have Clary visualize the rune before drawing it, because that's how the process works in the books, and that's just seems like it makes more sense than her just randomly deciding to draw it. To see her visualize it was something that was important. And I'm also really glad that we're bringing this up because we really haven't seen a lot of it since the very end of season 1, so we're starting to bring it back, and I'm really glad that we are, because it felt like it was introduced but we weren't really continuing on with it. So I'm glad that we finally brought it in this episode, and it seems like it's done really well, so I'm excited to see where we continue to go with this plot. So we have Alder Tree. Here's the thing. There's this theory going around that was introduced by Christine in Pulling Bananas books, and it's this idea that Alder Tree is actually Sebastian with a shape-shifting rune. There are several theories that support this. One, the fact that they're the only two characters that have British accents. Two, the fact that when Jace was on trial with the Mortal Sword, that Alder Tree asked him about his relationship with Clary and about the Falcon story, things that he wouldn't know about but Sebastian would or would care about. And then we have some things in this episode that are brought in that I thought was a little bit weird. Alder Tree says that he would gladly give his life to protect the sword, and that he would have preferred for Jace to have let him die and Jace get the sword than to have Valentine run off with it like he does at the end of episode 4. It just felt strangely Sebastian to me, and he also then ends up benching Jace, and so it seems as if Alder Tree is trying to take out our core Shadowhunters to make it easier for Valentine to come in and wipe out the New York Institute, because by benching Jace, that's one of your best fighters. Like, that's clearly, you know, most people, as much as they were upset with Jace, they would still let him fight because they would know that they would need him, but, you know, it seems like we're going in that direction. And then we have Izzy. And so Izzy has this infection from this demon possession that she had happen in last week's episode. So she wants to lead this group of Shadowhunters to the Iron Sisters. Alder Tree doesn't let her do it because of her wound, but he says if you're so insistent upon doing this, and he has this box, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be Yin-Fen, it's gonna be Yin-Fen, don't let it be Yin-Fen. And it was Yin-Fen. And here's the thing, this is really gonna F things up. Yin-Fen is very easily capable of being addicted to. We see it in the Infernal Devices, so again, Infernal Devices vibes. I was really creeped out when I just saw a preview of this scene because I thought that Alder Tree was trying to like molest her or assault her or rape her. Like, it just was weird to me when I saw it out of context, but it's the Yin-Fen. We see her use it twice in this episode, and if she gets addicted to it, that could be very bad. I don't want to see her get addicted to it, but it's definitely gonna F things up, and I'm very, very interested to see where they take this plot line. But again, it would seem like it would make sense that Sebastian would have the Yin-Fen, then he'd want to try to take Izzy out, and then he could also take Alec out by maybe making the implication that he's fraternizing with a Downworlder, and since the Shadowhunter Downworlder relations are very tight, that he could call that out on Alec, and so then all their core fighters would be taken out, which would make it easier for Valentine to invade and wipe out all of these Shadowhunters. That's my theory, but I'm interested to see where we go with this, and I'm hoping that that's not the case because it seems like a very easy plot to go for, but I was interested that that was brought up, and I'm starting to notice it more and more now that I'm actually aware of this concept and that it's something that people are starting to assume. So we have this final scene, which was absolutely beautiful and just super haunting, and we have all the Shadowhunters dressed in white for a funeral, which I really appreciated because, again, content from the books. And we have Clary and Jace, which go up to Jocelyn and her dead body. They're asked to say the name of the deceased. So Clary tries to do it. She breaks down in tears and can't get through it. And Jace goes to comfort her, says Jocelyn's name, and all the Shadowhunters in the congregation respond with Ave Apke Vale, hail and farewell. And they also make up the comment, we are dust and shadows, which is also from the books. And I was just so happy to see that because they could have easily dismissed it. And it was so beautiful. And I was like, thank God we brought this up because that would have been such a missed opportunity if we didn't. That just made me really, really happy to see. And it just was super beautiful. Even Mataderio was crying, like everyone was crying, and it was just so beautiful. And I loved it. And especially we have this moment where like all of their souls are like brought up, and it's like this very like silver, bluish, twinkly lights type thing, and it like all like flows out into the sky. And so we see it, and then we start to pan the camera down again. I'm like, why are we panning it down? And we see Luke, and he's like covered in blood. It looks like he's half dead, and we haven't seen him at all in this episode. And so you're just like, what the hell happened? And that was such a good cliffhanger. It seems like we've considered cliffhangers just just areas where the episode cuts off very abruptly and you're like, what the hell just happened? There's a difference between that and actually teasing a piece of information at the end of an episode. And so we're putting in genuine cliffhangers, we're improving with that, and I'm so pumped to see where they take him and his character and what the hell happened to him, because I was genuinely curious to see, because I know that if there's anyone that would be upset over Jocelyn's death, it would be him. So I really want to know what happened to him, and it makes me super pumped for next week's episode, and I really hope that we get to continue that plot line, we get to find out more about that. So that's pretty much it for my review of Dust and Shadows. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode and this review. If you guys want to comment down below what your favorite scene was, let me know. Again, that being said, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week with a new review. Goodbye!